Brendan Bugler, good morning to you.
Ger, how are you?
Yeah, that was a pretty sensational second half comeback from Clare yesterday. I'm not going to lie, at one point I did have a tweet ready to go, Jesus, what the hell has happened to Clare? And I thought, better tone that down a bit, and was like, this could get ugly for Clare really quickly. And all of a sudden, Tipperary stopped doing whatever they were doing. Clare got back into the game. They stopped hitting wides, and, well, the rest is history. What did happen?
Yeah, look at I suppose yesterday was all about just getting the result, really. The performance was kind of irrelevant, and I suppose you have to remember as well, we were going down into the Lions' den, really, and hoping to knock them out of the championship, and more importantly, hoping to keep ourselves in the championship. And I suppose there was that little bit of nervousness there with the Clare lads, I suppose, for the first 15, 20 minutes. But the one thing, and I said it to a couple of lads at half-time, without playing well at all, and Tipperary played really, really well now in the first half, we were still only 4 points down at half-time. So, you were within 2 pucks of a ball of overtaking them. And we just hung in there. And eventually, you need a little bit of luck at the end of the day. And we got a little bit of luck when they hit the post, and 10 seconds later we had the ball in the back of the net. So instead of being 7 points down, we were a point down. And that was ultimately the changing of the game. But, there's no doubt about it that we showed massive character and eventually just clawed out the result.
Real resilience from the team not to fold their tent really in that first 20 minutes when, Tipperary were definitely, everything was sticking, their touch was sweet, and the Clare first touch in that first half wasn't great, certainly the first 20 minutes as well. So where did that resilience come from, do you think, over the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, like these guys, I know for myself, I've soldiered with them for a couple of years, and as well as being teammates, they've been friends, and I know the effort they put in, and they train really, really hard. And I suppose in the second half, especially in the last 10 minutes, you could argue that the freshness was there, having the week off the week before. Like with Kilkenny just thundered into the game for the last 20 minutes, and they were totally in control. I felt that we were a little bit more fresher towards the end of the game, but I suppose it's something we haven't seen in the Clare team in a while, was that resilience. Sometimes when we're being well played and bet off the park, like we were in the first half yesterday, the heads could have dropped and we could have gone in, 7-8 points down. But instead, the boys just kept hanging in there, and we were doing certain things that were a little bit uncharacteristic of ourselves. Tony, who would put points over the bar all day long, he just so happened to hit 3 wides, but he stuck in there and he got 2 vital points just before half-time to kind of claw it back a little bit. And really, I suppose that was the big point from yesterday, that we hung in there. The resilience shown was brilliant, but we know as well here in Clare that there's another 30-40% in those guys as well, which is very exciting going forward.
Absolutely, and I think the lack of accuracy in a strange way almost plays into that optimism that at least the opportunities were there for Tony Kelly early in the match, particularly around the first half, the second quarter of the match. And I guess what we were talking about earlier on in the season was, how do you get Tony Kelly on the ball and getting him into scoring positions? The fact that he's in those positions now and that he's putting the ball wide is a lot more encouraging than vice versa, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, yeah. And he started off the year, he was middle of the field, and the game against Cork, it was highlighted as well. Yeah, how do we get Tony on the ball a little bit more? Because we know in Clare and we know in the country as well what he can do when he has the ball in hand. He can put the ball over the bar from any place, right or left. And look, at the main positive was he was getting on the ball, and Tipperary had to make a change. Paddy Marrett was playing really, really well, but he was playing deep and he was getting on ball there. But Tony was playing a little bit further out the field, and he was getting on a load of ball. So Tony could have had 5 points in that first half. But Tipperary made the switch, to put Body on the wing, and they put in Joe Dwyer, man marking Tony, and it curtailed Tony a small little bit in the second half. All right, but yeah, the main point is he's getting on the ball, and if our conversion rate can improve a small little bit for next week, it's exciting times ahead, hopefully.
Tommy made the point, sorry, to Marchasa about the Shane O'Donnell kind of diving full length block. It was just a little flick to get the ball for the Duggan lead point, actually, which is, as Owen was saying, one of the most sensational points you're ever going to see, and might get overshadowed by the fact that it wasn't technically the winner, although it kind of is the winner. But it was that level of work that he was willing to go to 73 minutes in, and it's a little thing that probably doesn't get picked up that much, except Tommy mentioned it and now we're mentioning it, so maybe it does. But that was definitely the attitude from him, who when you think the game hadn't gone as he wasn't as big a scoring threat maybe as you want from somebody as talented as him, but it's that commitment that they showed that saw them through.
Yeah, definitely. Looking the modern day forward isn't all about putting the ball over the bar. The work rate has to be phenomenal, and I know it's a cliche, but your defence does start at 15, and that's one thing that this Clare management they demand off the players is a phenomenal work rate, and Shane led the line yesterday with his work rate, and it was highlighted last night. He done really, really well to win the ball back for Peter. But look, that's needed, and it gives a big boost to the team as well if you see your forwards working hard, creating turnovers, and we punishing them and putting the ball over the bar as well. So look, that's just demanded. I suppose any top teams, they all talk about after the game if they win, our work rate was really, really good today, and if your work rate isn't in, you're not going to win at the end of the day. So it's just what's demanded from the guys, really.
I spoke to Podge actually afterwards, and he was delighted, as you can imagine. But as well as that, he spoke, and I thought it was very interesting that he said it had echoes and shades of the 2013 performance against Cork, and he said he was really happy with his performance and he felt that he was back. Are Clare back in general, do you think? Is this a starting point now rather than kind of a beginning of a journey, if you know what I mean?
Look, yes, it was a massive game. If you lost your as the way the Limerick game so happened to pan out, we were gone out with the championship, so it was absolutely massive. But we don't want to be blowing ourselves up either. We're still, there's a big game next week inside in Cusack Park, and hopefully we can get back into a Munster final. Last year we would have felt that we more probably left the Munster final after us, so I suppose there's a little bit of hoping to undo a couple of wrongs as well. But just going back to Podge, Podge deserves massive credit because his form wasn't great this year, but as I said to him, form is temporary, class is permanent, and his confidence was a little bit low. He wasn't making the team, but you just seen the impact he made when he came on. He was absolutely sensational, buzzing up and down, brings that energy, and there's one thing you can't buy, and that's a good attitude. And every single time Podge puts on the jersey, or whether he goes training, his attitude is just impeccable, and that always comes out on top in the end, and it just showed. And I was delighted for him because he's had a tough couple of months when you've been a player of his calibre, and then you're dropped, and then you're struggling to get back into the team, and your form isn't great in training. But to come on and do what he did yesterday, and he was really, he made a massive impact, and you could say he was the difference, really.
Yeah, like just on the idea of Podge and 2013 and all that, to what extent did yesterday prove that the shackles of 2013 have finally been cast off? Because there was always a sense, particularly around somebody like Shane O'Donnell, that he had to produce an incredibly high-scoring performance every time he went back out into the pitch after that replay in 2013. Whereas yesterday I felt was the real arrival of Shane O'Donnell as a link man, a man who could win you the ball and pass it off to a Tony Kelly or to a John Conlon or to a Peter Duggan to put the ball over the bar. That finally the whole idea of 2013 being a burden to this Clare team is finally over.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. But I still sometimes think we talk about too much about 13 rather than just being in the present and just talk about the next game. But look, we know in Clare that undoubtedly that there are some really, really, really good hurlers there, and I just hope we get back to Croke Park, because there's something about these guys when they get into Croke Park that the shackles really come off and they really express themselves. But our record in Munster Championship has not been good, especially since 2013. It's been woeful, really. So that game yesterday, it was more than just a game. You were playing the rival in their own back garden, and we got the victory. It was just an extraordinary day down in Thurles. So look, you would like to think the shackles are off now, and we can just play, I suppose, with that little bit of without the nervousness, I suppose, for the year ahead. But look, at minimum, we have a great chance to get into a quarter final minimum, and hopefully the year will just take off from now.
A quick word about Tipperary. Were you surprised over the course of the Munster Championship just how badly they played, really, compared with what they're actually capable of? And maybe I'm wrong to classify it as playing badly when actually there were passages of that game where they were sensational. There were passages of all the games where they were sensational, but just always too short and too infrequent, those passages.
That's it, sure, yeah, and it just came down to inconsistency at the end of the day, really. That was it. Like, they weren't consistent for a full 70 minutes. They showed. I seen something different in Tipperary this year as well. That never say die attitude. It didn't matter how many points they were down. They kept clawing it back, and they showed massive resilience the last two games. And going into Thurles yesterday, I was just wondering, which team is going to turn up? Is it going to be the team that played in the first half against Cork and Waterford, or is it going to be the team that turned up for the second half against Cork and Waterford? And then you see Tipp playing unbelievably well, right, in the first half, and you're wondering, geez, if these guys maintain this for 70 minutes, we're going to be in trouble here. But there was that little bit of inconsistency, and they weren't the same team, I suppose, in the second half yesterday as they were in the first half. So there's no doubt about it. There's massive disappointment down there. You would have thought during the league, the fact they were trying out so many players, that they were thinking in Munster Championship, and oh yeah, we're going to have 4 weeks in a row. We need as many guys as possible, but they didn't seem to have a settled look about their team, and that was a big problem for them.
Yeah, okay, one final quick word about Limerick then. It probably didn't again get the coverage because it was on exactly the same time as the Clare match, but they absolutely annihilated Waterford. And so Waterford have had their issues in terms of the injuries, but they were still pretty resilient themselves the previous week, and you just felt like there was a kick in this Waterford team. Limerick, 15 minutes into that game, I think they'd reeled off 2-6 or 2-7 without reply at one stage. They were 2 points to 1 down, and then it was like 2-8 to 2 points in the blink of an eye. So this is a coming team who seem to have all of the accoutrements of a championship winning team.
Yeah, Joe, look, they're really strong, and you have to say now that they're probably up there with Galway in relation to All-Ireland top 2 for contenders for the All-Ireland this year. So they've been really impressive, and I know from myself, from working with Joe O'Connor and Paul Kinnerk, for a couple of years, those guys, they have it bang on, and they've unearthed an awful lot of really good players this year as well. Flanagan full forward is a really good find. Tom Morrissey's coming into his own as well. They've a real settled look about their team physically. Right, their S&C, Joe Connor has them bang on at the moment, and they're really hurling well. It's going to be a great day next week above in Cusack Park. It's a Munster semi-final, and we'll be hoping to cloud with the victory. But they've been so impressive all year, and they've been consistent as well. So they are a challenge for anybody, and whoever beats Limerick is going to go a long way to winning the All-Ireland this year.
Yeah, Brendan, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.